Christy Whitman. Welcome back to the Fieldswell Podcast.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Hello. So, Christy Whitman, you are a New York Times bestselling author. You're a law of attraction coach. And last time we talked a lot about the law of attraction, manifestation, and energy mastery. And today we're going to talk all about your new book.
Yay, the flow factor.
Which I'm so the flow factor. So, after teaching so many of us how to manifest our desires, what was it that led you to write a book all about flow?
Well, it's interesting because I had a university come to me and say, we'd like to offer you a PhD in your public work, which was amazing, right? And so they basically said to me, what else have you not said? What else needs to be out there in the world that people need to know about? And so it started off for me as a dissertation, as what I was going to really allow my PhD to be about. And I had to do some introspection because this is my seventh book. I have other ebooks, but this is
Wow.
my seventh. Yeah. And so it became, what do people need to know about? And really what it's about is that, when you are manifesting, when you're working with universal laws like law of attraction, sometimes things don't go the way you want them to. And sometimes we have contrast, meaning what we don't want. And so, how do we as human beings navigate through the contrast, through those unwanted things, instead of pushing against and resisting and getting more frustrated or beating ourselves up or blaming ourselves or thinking, this works for everybody else. Why is it not working for me? Which are very disempowering thoughts and beliefs. How do we navigate through it? And what's the option? And so all the work that I was teaching through quantum energy mastery and through helping people master their own energy is really understanding that we as humans have this coping mechanism because we are animals, just like a bunny or a coyote, we are animals. And we have this coping mechanism of fight, flight, freeze, and other such as fawn that I talk about in the flow factor. And when those coping mechanisms come up, when we're having these human reactions, how do we allow ourselves to have them and then return back and get into flow? And really, where does flow come from and what is flow and how do we access it? And so that became my research, that became my, really what I was coaching clients through and helping them heal with. And then going through the process of going back to school and getting a PhD, I said, you know what? I'd rather just write a book. So that's what I
Yeah.
did.
Well, congratulations.
Thank
I am
you.
all about flow. And it's really interesting that I have you on this morning because there have been many things that have happened today that have, in an effort, felt like they've been put in place to try and test me and disrupt my flow. And so I think it's really funny to have you on about this book because you can tell us all about how to get back in our flow, how to maintain our flow. And I think it's so important for our listeners to understand you can feel that in your energy when something goes wrong and you feel a shift. And it is that contrast. Is that exactly what you're explaining here?
That's it. So contrast again is what we don't want, right? I woke up this morning and my son was going to, do the pan from dinner last night and he decided to just let it soak. So this morning, one of my things is I like a clean kitchen. I do not like dishes and pots and pans and things like that in the sink. And so I go to fill up my water bottle and I see the pan there, right? So that moment of having contrast, I have choices, right? But
Right.
sometimes it feels like we don't have choices where like our limbic system just gets in high alert. And what we make something mean, right, can then create our reactions. He's
Right.
disrespecting me. He doesn't love me, right? We can come into all of these like make it mean something. And so
Mm-hmm.
instead, because what I know, do I want that pot in the sink to take me out of my flow? No, of course not.
No, it's of course not.
Right.
What meaning do you want to give it, Christy? This morning, I was on my way to come here to record the podcast with you, and have some construction going on at our house. And one of the construction men was there, and he was saying the garage code isn't working. And so I said, "Why don't I just show you how it works?" And so I shut the garage door with him on the outside of the house to type in the code, and it isn't working. And so I'm locked out of my home. We have to jump through a window. And all I was thinking was calm, solution oriented, instead of letting myself spiral, focusing on the outcome that I want. And we made it here in time to record. And so I think it's just kind of the perfect story to start our morning because life happens. So many unpredictable things happen. And it's really, how do we want to feel?
That's it. And a lot of times we feel out of control because it is the limbic system. It is what,
Hmm.
through working with the council, who I am a messenger for, that
Yes.
higher energy. It's at the back of our head. It
Mm.
literally, when we go into that survival mode, we can't
Hmm.
access the higher centers. We can't access
Right.
our intuition or that higher perspective that all things are going to be well and that there's solutions. And, we get stuck in that and then we might like scream and yell or get upset. But the thing is that contrast, again, it could be very extreme things that are very traumatic, from
Hmm.
big T traumas to little T traumas, those things, those have imprinted us. And then we have learned how to react or respond based on our own imprint. And so when we are allowing ourselves to come into a sense of compassion, compassion is, you know, not talking about compassion for others, right? That's a whole other thing. Compassion for ourselves when we feel that stress, when we feel that
Yes.
overwhelm, when we feel that
Yeah.
panic, right? To be able to let ourselves just calm down by, knowing that there's a solution, right? By working with the energy of the back of the brain so that we can look at and bring in our intuition that, okay, there's a
Hmm.
solution here. Because contrast happens, right? You can't avoid it. It doesn't matter
Can't avoid
who
it.
you are. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter who you are. Human, it's a
Right.
human condition, right? Contrast happens, but our resistance to the contrast is optional.
So it is in how we respond to it instead of react. Take a beat, that pause between stimulus and response where we get to choose our next step, our next move, and like to instead ground and breathe and focus on returning to flow. So I'm curious for you, what is your definition of flow?
Flow is the action really, and it's the substance of who we really are. As I wrote in my
Mm,
book Quantum Success, who we know ourselves to be, what age and stage and everything that we've experienced is only 4% of who we really are. The greater part, the 96%, is our soul, is the divine, is infinite energy. And so that flow, that energy is flow, and it's flow of positive, pure potential energy that we don't just have access to, we are it. So,
wow.
as the human part of us has that fight,
Yeah.
flight, freeze, the other option that most people haven't brought in is that energy of flow, knowing that if we're in lack, the abundance also exists. If we feel like a failure, success also is there. If we don't feel support, that love is also available to us. I like to think of it as, when you have a piano, right? All
Hmm.
the different keys on the piano have a different tone, a different note, right? Some are more lower, and we can consider that maybe lower level emotions that don't feel good. And some of the notes are higher, and we could look at that as positive the notes that we're playing, right? But we're the piano player. So
Mm,
when something happens and it's
hmm.
take a pause, take a breath, right? Give yourself a hug. Hug yourself for 90 seconds, just in the moment, hug yourself because that brings you back to the present moment. It brings you back to that soothing energy, right? It calms the limbic system, it calms the nervous system. And then we are able to access higher awareness and higher
Hmm.
flow. The piano exists, the keys exist, but we're the piano player. So
Yeah.
we get to choose what notes we're tapping into. The notes exist. The potential for the song or the music exists, but we need to know how to master our own energy by knowing that what we want, every vibration is accessible to us.
It's all out there waiting to be selected by you. And how quickly can you return to equilibrium after being knocked down or disrupted or facing that contrast instead of staying in that lower vibration frequency? How quickly can you return to flow? And for me, I know a lot of people hear flow as in like, or think of flow as when you're doing an activity and just time just passes. Like all of a sudden it's been 2 hours, you've been working on something, you haven't even looked at the clock, you've been so deeply immersed in whatever it is that you're doing. What are some other examples you have of being in the flow?
Well, it's like the artist, right? That all of a sudden just will paint the picture and it's just wow, right? Or I always like to think because I'm at the age where used to watch Michael Jordan play, right? That man, when he played basketball, he was like they would say as an athlete in the zone, right? He would just do things that sometimes he'd be like, I don't know how he did it, right? He was
Hmm.
so connected to his own genius, to his own flow, right?
Hmm.
When say someone like Billy Joel or Elton John, or an artist like that can literally just have this song download through them. I remember Tommy, I forget his last name, from Styx. He was in a cab one day and he was hearing this song, and it turned out to be the song "Too Much Time on My Hands." And it wasn't like back then he had a pen or paper or recording device or even a cell phone with him. So he had to like he was hearing this flow of this song and the words. And the minute he got to the place that he was at, he wrote it all down and it just
Yeah.
flowed through him. So when I write a book, right? My
Hmm.
my books, I have people say to me, "When are you going to write your next book?" I'm like, "I don't know. It hasn't flowed through me yet." Right?
Wow.
It's that energy of I put pen to paper or that information comes through and I am a conduit for it. Something wants to come through. It wants to birth through me. It could be an idea for a business where you all of a sudden go, "Oh my
Yes.
God, that's brilliant." Right? It's so
Hmm.
flow is creative and we're the
Yeah.
ones that need to as the human being, right? Flow is non-physical and we are the physical human beings that either resist the flow or we accept and allow the flow.
And how would you differentiate between flow and being in alignment?
It's the same thing. I mean, alignment is you're in alignment with the flow of something, right? You're in alignment with the flow of abundance. You're in alignment with the flow of love, of
Hmm.
creativity, right?
Hmm.
Alignment feels good, and so does flow. Alignment is connecting with something so much greater than ourselves. And then the action is that flow.
Hmm. So what do you think are some of the biggest things preventing people from being in flow? Is it resistance to fully like being alive or focusing on what your intention is with what you're doing? Or what do you think is the biggest thing preventing people from entering flow state?
So let's just talk about the other sections. So, like the other aspects fight, flight, freeze, right? Because it's a natural human experience, right? So, fight is not me. I'm not like, come on, put up your dukes. I'm going to like, we think of fight that way, right? But
Right.
there's so much more behind that. So, it's not like fight is like, boom, right? We're
Hmm.
fighting inside of our own heads, which means resisting what that looks like. It could be fear, it could be doubt, it could be worry. That's resistance. And when that energy is like looping, right? That's we're in just we could even be in an argument with someone
Hmm.
that we had an argument with 20 years ago and we're still fighting with them in our heads, right? I see that
Right.
all the time with clients. They're still fighting with their
Yeah.
siblings or they're fighting with their father or their mother, or,
From a decade or 20 years ago, reliving a past experience that only exists as a memory inside of your mind.
yes, because the imprints there's so much I want to say here, but the imprints of moments, I like to call it, and I talk about this in the flow factor. They're bushwhacks, right? We're going along, and it could be a really big trauma, like some level of abuse, or it could be a smaller trauma, like big T trauma, or a smaller T trauma. But either way, if we felt something and we closed down around that energy, meaning we didn't process the thoughts about it, we didn't process the emotions around it. Energy doesn't get created or destroyed. It is, and it constantly is moving. So if we had something like a feeling of disappointment, for example, and we closed our energy field around that disappointment, energy is like a caged animal. It continues to move and it creates vortexes within us,
Mhm.
which then by law of attraction
Mhm.
draws to us more of the same. So we're, God, why do I always so disappointed? This is so disappointing. I work so hard and still I'm left feeling disappointed because there's imprints within us that we haven't let go of and that we have the potential to heal. Because once we allow the energy of that disappointment, now we can flow with a higher energy. Now we can flow in the success or the fun or the surprise and the delight, right? But
Mhm.
again, what happens is we get in that I push against being
Mhm.
disappointed. I don't want to do that because I'm pushing against, I'm trying to avoid fear instead of moving towards pleasure. So there's that fight part, but then let's talk about the freeze part, because as a coach for 25 years, I hear this all the time. I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I feel like there's something holding me back. I feel
Mhm.
blocked, right? And
Yeah.
that feeling is I'm in freeze mode. And that's a coping mechanism that some of us learned, all of us learned. But there's a degree of, do you fight? Are you resisting? Or are you in freeze mode? Or are you in flight mode? Which is a whole different thing, because flight can be like, I've got one foot in and one foot out, right?
Dipping my toe in. Yeah.
I'd like to say in my first
Yeah.
marriage, I was in flight mode because for me, and I'll just show you, I'll give an example. When I was a kid, about 7 years old, my mom and dad were having a horrendous fight. And my dad left the house, as he a lot of times would do, and squealing the tires away, and he would go take off. And my sister and I were saying to my mom, "Why don't you leave him? Why are you putting up with this abuse?" And my mom said, "Because what am I supposed to do about money?" Right. And it was like, so I made a vow to myself, never in my life will I let a man, like this vow, I will make my own money. And that was good because it motivated me, it inspired me. It was an imprint that got me to, do what I'm doing now. However, in my first marriage, when he would speak to me, and he was a sweet man, but when he would speak to me in a wrong way, or if there was a threat that he was going to leave me, or if there was something that he didn't do that I expected, I'm like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Bye.
See ya. I was like, I've
Yeah.
already
Yeah.
got my metaphorical
Right.
bag packed, ready to
Right.
leave
You're
you.
ready. You're ready
Yes.
to go. Yeah.
And even for a lot of women, I'll just say this for women in that flight mode, it could look like you're not present with yourself.
Mhm.
You're not present with that flow. And so you
Mhm.
do more and you take on more. And it's like you go busy, 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 just so you don't have any time to be with yourself and be present with any pain you're feeling. Because there's alignment. And then there's like, okay, I'm out of alignment. And so what
Mhm.
do? We use vices. It might be work harder. It might be like, I was years ago, where it's like I'm a workaholic and my work just kept me further and further away from myself, right? Or we use other vices like drinking or smoking marijuana, or, drinking too much coffee or eating too much
Mhm.
sugar. We do these things as a way to leave ourselves and run away from ourselves instead of come into the flow. And
Mhm. Mhm.
it's like compassion for yourself, because we didn't know any other way of doing it,
Right.
but now
Right.
we know there is a better way. And as we master our own energy, and
Yeah.
our energy is our words that we say, our
Mhm.
thoughts that we think, our perspectives that we hold, our
Mhm.
emotions that we either process or don't, and the actions that we take. So compassion for ourselves becomes that neutrality of that fight, flight, freeze, so that we can access the flow.
You believe, and what we're saying here is that compassion is the gateway to interflow state and
It
move
is.
away from this fight, flight, or freeze response is just to start caring for and loving yourself. And once you hold that mirror up, deciding that you want better for yourself, once you realize that you're creating this whole melodrama for yourself based on how you're reacting to life and resisting it.
Yes, and sometimes it's parts of us that are just trying to stay
Mhm.
in survival mode, to not be
Mhm.
abused, to not be yelled at, to not have the disappointment, right? And so it's that compassion for the younger parts of us. It's the compassion for the part of us that feels that kind of stuck, right? It's
Yeah.
just important to know that it's like, if something is holding you back, beating yourself up doesn't help. because I also talk about the drama triangle, what I like to call the lack triangle, because anytime we're in this fight, flight, freeze, any of that, or we
Hmm.
feel negative emotion, and lower level emotion is coming from lack. Lack always feels bad. And there's three very different distinct states of being. There's lack, which, like I said, always feels bad. There's neutrality, which is not like, woo, I'm over the moon, but I'm
Hmm.
okay. There's
Yeah.
satisfaction. I can be content in this moment. And then there's abundance, which that's where all of like the joy and the fun and the excitement and the eagerness and passion and purpose, all of that are in that bucket of abundance. But a lot of times we can't go from despair over into abundance. There was an influencer just yesterday that posted something on Instagram and said, when you're disappointed that something didn't work out, just flip it and be appreciative for what did work out. And I'm like, dude, that's such a leap for most people.
Right.
If you're mired in despair, disappointment, you can't access the higher vibrations of appreciation. It's too
Right.
far of a leap. But getting yourself into that compassion mode, that neutrality, because it's based on the law of sufficiency and abundance. It's not the law of
Hmm.
abundance, it's the law of
Hmm.
sufficiency. So if you're coming into the I'm enough, this is enough, I'm okay. Now that opens the doorway to abundance or through gratitude and appreciation. But going from
Yeah.
one end to the
Right.
other, it
Right.
makes people feel like they're a total failure. Like, well, you could do it. Why can't I? Is there something wrong with me? You
It's a
know?
huge leap. It's a huge leap. I really love this concept of energetic imprints because we all have them. These experiences that happened in our past, as you said, little t or big T trauma that are clouding how we show up today because we maybe haven't fully healed or we're still holding on or resisting the situation as it happened many years ago. And it's changing how we react and not and how we respond because which is what we want to do is think of how we respond. And so I really love this approach of the neutrality and that self compassion. What does that really look like? Because, yes, I hear you, but I think we could go a little bit deeper for our listeners. Maybe they've been in this fight, flight, or freeze response. They've been resisting their reality. They've been major reactive mode, overworking, choosing other vices to kind of numb. How do they get out of that and start to approach the possibility of entering flow state?
Well, a number of things. I mean, I've been teaching this for
Hmm.
25 years. There's lots of different tools and processes, many of which I have in the flow factor. The whole second section
Hmm.
of the flow factor is an
Hmm.
appendix of energy mastery processes. And for right now, like I said, give yourself a hug. You've got your arms with you. Takes 90 seconds to process an emotion. So just hugging yourself and holding yourself is a somatic, it calms the limbic system. It lets you
Hmm.
come back into the present moment. It lets you come into yourself. And then there's a lot of other information, but the back of the head and neck, right? This is where
Hmm.
at the back of the head, this is where the survival comes from and the
Hmm.
reactivity. There at that place where at the nape of the neck, there is a place where it's like very sensitive right there. If you imagine turning like opening up that valve, like you hear about chakras, right? This is a important release valve because when we're in that place, if we could imagine turning that on like a bathtub, right? If you're like
Yes.
turning the knob, if you're opening that up, letting all of that energy release out the back of the head and neck, that releases that tension and that limbic system, the nervous system can actually release. I mean, I've got so many different tools. I've got a tool
Mhm.
shed of all this. Yeah.
So many tools, and everyone can get excited to read your book to find out more. One of the things that I love to work on with my clients is I notice a lot of individuals were focused on what we don't want,
Yes.
whether it was what happened that we didn't want to happen or that we're anxious about what's going to happen in the future, and we're focusing on what we don't want. Instead, to flip that to what is it that you do want? And if it's
Yes.
that love, that abundance, that flow, to keep visualizing that or focusing on that and start walking down that path towards how you want to feel and what you want to attract in your life. And I do believe that all starts with feeling safe in this vessel of our body. And I love you bringing in the somatics here of hugging yourself, on focusing on the back of your neck. There's so many approaches, the gratitude, and any others you want to bring into our chat.
Well, you just brought this up, which is I've been teaching this again for years. It's ask yourself three questions. And the first one is, what do you want? Because you're absolutely right. Most of us are pushing against. There's two states of what we could do. We're either pushing against, what we don't want, or we're trying to avoid pain, or we're moving towards what we do want, which is accepting and moving towards pleasure. But we've been so accustomed to focusing on what we don't want. I don't want to gain weight. I don't want to get a divorce. I don't want to lose my keys. I don't want to lock
Mhm.
myself out of the house, right? There's all these things that we focus on what we don't want. I don't want
Right.
my kid to
Right.
fail, right? So, number one, ask yourself, what do I want? Most people don't even give themselves permission to ask ourselves, what do we want? So, what do you want is essential because it gets your mental body. We have four bodies. It gets your mental body shifting in a direction of what feels good. And then when
Mhm.
you ask yourself, okay, what do I want? Why do I want it? You start listing out what are the reasons why you want something. That gets your emotional body, which is the lower part of your body, starting to focus. Now you got your mental and your emotional focusing in the way that you do want to go, which then affects your physical body, right? So, what do I want? Why do I want it? And how will I feel when I get it? Because all of us, doesn't matter who, it's a human condition. We think if I get that pile of money, then I'm going to feel. If I attract that partner, then I'm going to feel. If I get out of this relationship, then I'm going to feel. If something happens, then I'm going to feel. But we're assigning all of our power and the flow of those feelings, which can be accessed now, to something that is outside of ourselves and further it's if, when, then kind of a thing. So, what do I want? Why do I want it? And how will I feel? Know that that access of I'll feel joy, I'll feel secure, I'll feel safe, that is a feeling and a state like those keys on the piano you can
Yes.
play right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh, 100%. I love this so much. So many of us can get worked up. Okay, I really want to attract my partner. I want love in my life. I'm so upset that I'm not getting it. It's not coming for me. Start playing that love key now.
Yes.
Start embodying love. Start loving on yourself. Start pouring love into the relationships you already have in your life because then you're vibrating on the same frequency of what you're looking to call in.
Yes. So when I was out of my first marriage, I was very clear. Okay, these are the things I don't want. So what's the opposite of that? And I started a list, right, of what are the qualities I do want in a partner, not just based on my last one, but based on other men I had dated and where I also was now at this new point of attraction and this new consciousness and new awareness, right? So, what do I want? Why do I want it? How do I want to feel? And I really wanted to attract a partner. I don't like just dating around. I wanted to be committed and loyal. I wanted someone that I can share my life with. And so I started feeling my way into my now husband of 19 years.
Wow.
Started
Wow.
feeling my way into Frederick, my husband.
Yeah.
But the
Wow.
key for me was I want to feel connected. I want to feel love. I want to feel that support, but he wasn't in my life yet. So Christy needed to give herself the connection, the love,
Yes.
the support
Yes. Yes.
right
So,
now.
you know what? I last night, I love to journal before bed. I made that list for myself last night. And I went through the list and I looked at everything that I wrote down and the partner that I'm looking to call in and attract. And I said, am I this quality on each one where I did loyal, committed, fun, hardworking, loves to travel? Do I embody those characteristics? Where do I need work to ensure that I'm in alignment with what I'm looking to attract?
Yeah. Because the thing is that most people don't realize whether it's money, a partner, success,
Mhm.
whatever it is, we assign that thing that say it's money or in your case, a partner, right? We
Mhm.
assign that, oh, they're the source of me feeling loved. So I
Uh,
need that person to feel love and I won't have it until I have that person. But that's coming from lack. That's basically sharing with the universe. I don't currently have connection and love and safety within me. I'm looking for something outside of myself, a man in this case, to bring that to me, which then I'm coming from lack, and you cannot
Mhm.
attract abundance or the fulfillment of
Yeah.
what you desire from a place of lack. Right.
Mhm.
And so when
Mhm.
you're giving that to yourself, you're imagining, you're visualizing, you're feeling the flow of that now, and you're knowing what your real source is, your soul, your divine, you're fulfilled with it now. And then when you attract that person from a place of fulfillment, you're also attracting a person that is fulfilled themselves.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
not
And
this
it's
needy,
yeah.
we got to
Yep.
source each other, because here's where the disappointment comes in. No matter how
Mhm.
much love this person has, it's never
Mhm.
going to be enough if I'm in lack.
Right. If he's trying to fill an empty cup and yeah, then
Yeah.
you're just depending on this one person to continue filling your love cup. That needs to be your accountability. And it's what's so exciting is that we're in control of that.
Yes.
And after learning all about this and how to fill up our own cup, once you know, there's no going back because you just have to take it upon yourself and then you're in control. There's no reason why you can't have a life full of love, success, abundance once you start doing this work.
Now. You can have it now.
Now, today, we can
Today,
start
right
today. Yeah.
now. Like the flow
Right
of that
now.
exists right
Yeah.
now. That's the beautiful thing, is that everything is energy, and all energy carries a vibration, and that vibration goes out into the universe and collects more of itself. And so the thing that we have to know is that we are, as human beings, energy receivers. We're constantly receiving energy from our
Yeah.
environment, the news, from our friends, our family, right? But we can also receive that energy from our higher source. We can receive that energy of flow at any given time that we invite it in and focus it in. So we are energy receivers. We're also energy containers. We're constantly
Mhm.
holding energy inside of
Yeah.
ourselves. And the quality or the vibration of that energy is ours to choose, like the keys on the piano, right? And it doesn't have to be just one. I mean, think about it. You don't go up to the piano, I mean, you could and just play one key all the
Over
time,
and over and over.
right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
if your sound, your beautiful music comes when you combine the different
Mhm.
frequencies and vibrations. And the
Mhm.
same thing is true
Mhm.
for each of us. We get to choose what the flow is. You can have both love and support and abundance and success and well-being and fun. All of that can be held in
Yeah.
our own container,
Uh-huh.
you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's so true. The power of intention.
Yes. It's an invitation.
It is. Are you ready for a rapid fire round?
I am.
One thing you do daily to return to flow.
Meditate.
A book that shifted your perspective.
Ask and it is given by Abraham Hicks.
Your favorite way to shift energy instantly.
Hugging myself, just giving myself a big hug.
Mhm. One piece of advice you'd give your younger self.
Ah, be easy on yourself and love yourself. Be kinder to yourself. The words that you speak about yourself are really important, and they manifest.
Mhm. A mantra or phrase you're loving right now.
Everything always works out for me.
Is there anything else as we begin to wrap up that we didn't cover about the flow factor that you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, a lot of times people will say to me, like, "Oh, how do you start this?" Right? We've talked a lot about a lot of big concepts, and to really ground it is we need to watch our words, because our words have creative power. And there are many phrases that people are saying all the time inside their own heads or to others
Yeah.
that pull their energy down and take them out of flow. So I
Mm.
created a 30-day, it's free program. It's called Watch Your Words. You can go to watchyourwords.com, and you get a video every day, 2 to 3 minutes in length. It tells you what not to say, why, and then what to replace it with, what to say instead, so that you're coming back into your flow. So that's a gift that you can all have.
Thank you.
Watchyourwords.com. You're welcome. But know that when you say something, like even the word can't or try, right? Some of these words and phrases are should or have to. They're pulling your energy down. They
Mhm.
constrict your energy
Yeah.
flow. And then you end up being, those are words from lack, which then you end up feeling bad, right? But we have a choice, just like the keys on the
Mhm.
piano, what words and phrases we choose, right? Nobody can
Yeah.
choose that for us. We can choose them.
Mhm.
And once you are aware of it, like you said, right? Once you know this,
Yeah.
you can't go back. I always say, once you birth the baby, you can't put the baby back in. I
Right.
don't know that you'd want to either, but it's birth.
Yeah.
You know it. It's in your consciousness, it's in your awareness. And now you can change and shift and transform because of that.
It's so true. I love to say, you are always listening. And so pay attention to the words you're using to speak and especially to talk about yourself because
Yes.
you are always listening. So when you say, I can't do something or this will never work, which I don't even love saying as an example,
Right.
but your mind is always listening. And so then that starts to become your belief system based on how you talk about yourself. And so I'm curious for you. I wanted to touch on, these different aspects you had talked about: words, thoughts, perspectives, emotions, and actions. Our words and our thoughts, do you believe the thought creates the words? Or how do we like reverse engineer that to ensure our words and our thoughts are in alignment with our desired future state?
Well, everything first is energy, right? And our words are in the beginning, there was the
Hmm.
word. And when you think about what thoughts are, they're a series of words, right? And thoughts thought over and over again become a belief. And then we see evidence of it and we go, see, it's true. And then it gets solidified as a belief. It becomes that perspective. And then our thoughts, our mental body is like instantaneously connected to our emotional body. So those feelings either feel good or they feel bad based on what we say. When we change those words, we change everything. I could give so many examples of how just
Wow.
changing one word and the
Yeah.
way we say those words and changing it to something else. For decades, people shifting their words and then shifting their reality. So it starts with our words.
Yeah. What would be the most powerful word you would suggest that we swap from and to?
I can, I am,
I
you
can.
know?
I love the I am. Whatever we say after I am, that's been my biggest process for manifestation and for rewiring my subconscious mind is like, I am all the things that I desire to be. I already
Yes.
am. It's already inside of me. And
Yes.
just over and over on repeat. Christy, you're so wonderful. I love your energy. And I'm so grateful to have you on this second time around. And I can't wait to dive into your new book. Where can our listeners find you, support you, and start to use some of the tools that you've so graciously shared with us?
Well, watchyourwords.com is a great place to go. Of course, my main website, christywhitman.com. And you can go to the flowfactorbook.com too, and it lists all the different places that the book, it's going to be everywhere. So,
Everywhere,
yeah,
everywhere. Well, Christy, thank you again. I
thank
so
you.
enjoy getting to experience your divine power and energy because it really is beautiful to witness. And I love the journey you're on. And I'm just so grateful to be connected. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And thank you for all that you do out in the world to help people have a better life experience.